before I get into this review for Thunderbolts, I'll say this. I rewatched the film again, and that is interesting because I did not rewatch Captain America Brave New World again. I will not be rewatching the Marvels, and I certainly won't be rewatching Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania either. I'm in the minority when I say that I didn't like Deadpool and Wolverine all that much. I liked Hugh Jackman in it. It's great to see Wolverine back, and he just plays the character so brilliantly. There's some good scenes in there, but I'm not a fan of the self-referential, self-aware, fourth wall breaking, Ryan Reynolds potty mouth humor kind of jokes. I don't like that stuff. So that's just not my bag, right? But I'll open with this sort of surprising moment in the review. I think Thunderbolts is the best MCU movie since probably Spider-Man No Way Home. And there's been a lot of duds over the last few years. I didn't like films like Multiverse of Madness, the second Doctor Strange movie. I thought Black Widow was poor. I thought Black Panther Wakanda Forever was extremely bloated and just generally boring. I actually think as well that Spider-Man No Way Home is as good as it was in its own way. It is fundamentally based around the gimmick of the multiverse and having characters and other versions of Spider-Man from different Spider-Man universes together on screen. I mean, that's fundamentally what that film, what the premise of that film works on. But I actually think that Thunderbolts is the better movie, which is going to be surprising to a lot of people. I do believe that because Thunderbolts has something that Spider-Man No Way Home does not have. Spider-Man No Way Home does not rewatch well, but Thunderbolts does. It's the kind of movie where I was like, I'd like to see that again. You know, I'd like to watch that movie again. So I watched it again, and I did get more out of it the second time. And there's, although I think I've been consistent enough in my approach to this movie for some time now, there's one area, there's one thing that I'm going to change my mind on. And it's interesting what the second viewing of a movie can do to your opinion of a film. And it's this. I actually do think this film is worth seeing in the cinema. I said before it wasn't. I said like this is a film sort of to wait till, you know, it comes out on TV or streaming or whatever. I actually think it's worth seeing in the cinema. It's regrettable that Thunderbolts will not be as big a win as it could be. If this film had been released in the beginning of Phase 4, it probably would have made $800 or $900 million. But because the brand has been so weakened over the last few years, too many TV shows, too many mediocre TV shows, too many mediocre movies, as a result of that, Thunderbolts is going to, it's going to be overlooked. And I'm not sure at this. I think you would have got away with a Misfits B-team superhero movie like this at the beginning of Phase 4. Especially after Endgame. Not that I think the franchise should have continued after Endgame, of course, as you know, that's my consistent opinion. But if you were going to do a movie like this, that would have been the time to do it. I think in Phase 5, the end of Phase 5, no, I think not. I think that it's too late to do a movie like this, and that's the reason why I don't think it's going to do amazing numbers at the box office. But we'll see. We've had the first weekend, and it's not exactly doing amazing numbers. But the point is, I do think on its own, Thunderbolts is quite a good movie. And I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I did really quite enjoy it. And there's some stuff I would have changed. There's some stuff I don't like in there. I wasn't a big fan of how the climax was handled. I thought there was a few moments where the jokes could have been cut out because I would have liked the film to be more serious. I thought the primary villain was perhaps a little bit too flamboyant and unsuited to the rest of the tone of the movie. But besides that, I think it works really well. And I also think the runtime is on point. It's under 2 hours, making it among the shorter of the recent MCU movies. And I'm left at the end, because the ending is quite abrupt, I was left going, I wanted to see more. You know, there's a post-credit scene, there's a mid-credit scene, there's a post-credit scene, but I wanted to see more. This film doesn't really have a coda. And that's probably a good thing, because action movies from the 80s, early 90s, they were also like that. There was no long protracted ending. They just often would end quite abruptly. So this film kind of feels like a throwback to that. I found the film to be an easy watch. And that's critical, because think about how many movies that you like, and you like them because they're just an easy watch. You can just have them on in the background while you're doing something else, right? That's the kind of movie I'm talking about. Narratively, the film flows very well. What good films have going for them is a strong script which moves from scene to scene, plot point to plot point, in a logical progression that makes sense. And there's no point in the movie where you go, why is this happening? Why are they here? Why are they doing this thing again? What's this about? Why is he talking to this character? What's this about? That's what it felt when you're watching Captain America Brave New World. Why? Because the script was poor, it had to be rewritten multiple times, and the film had to be re-edited multiple times, reshot several times, right? And so you reach these clunky moments in the film in Brave New World where it's like, why is this happening? Why is Captain America talking to this person? What's this about? And it loses you. You just intuitively, as a viewer, you feel this. You feel just a sudden disconnection with the movie where you forget, like, hold on, where did I kind of lost where the film was going there for a second. I lost it a few scenes back. Why are they doing this thing again? Why is this happening? That's a culmination of bad writing, bad editing, bad direction. You can feel with Brave New World that it's three movies colliding together halfway through the movie. They're kind of competing for screen time, right? It's kind of narrative schizophrenia happening. That's not the case with Thunderbolts. It's a cohesive, well-oiled movie that flows from one scene to the next. There's no point where you go, well, what's going on here? Sorry, I don't. What's happening? Remind me why they're doing this. There's no point in the film where that happens. That helps make it an easy watch. That's another very important thing that should be said, that this film has going for it in its favor. On the subject of the color palette, it is a bit desaturated. I can understand why stylistically they chose that, given the themes of the film. The film does deal with trauma and depression and all those kinds of things, and loneliness and anxiety. And I think a lot of people who feel that, and who feel these existential feelings today in the modern world, will appreciate that theme of the film at its core. It is a human story. It deals with a character who is ostensibly a villain in the form of Bob, who, there's spoilers in this review, okay, who becomes Sentry, who is basically the MCU's answer to Superman, although he's perhaps even more powerful because he has a bunch of other superpowers that Superman does not have. But it deals with his trauma at the back of this, and it is about him discovering his humanity and his confidence and everything else. And to some people, I think that will come across as a bit schmaltzy. We have had modern TV shows and films that deal with a little bit too much of emotional diarrhea, and there is unfortunately an element within a younger generation that sort of goes for that sort of stuff. I think it works in this movie overall. We're dealing with characters as well who are anti-heroes, who have dark pasts, and they know they're not great people, and yet one of the aspects of what it takes to be a hero is to overcome your weaknesses, to atone perhaps for the bad things that you've done in the past, the things you're not proud of, to turn darkness into light. And that's another reason why the film visually looks the way that it does. In fact, I think after watching the film, despite my criticisms of the trailer, it would have been artistically, stylistically, it would have been inappropriate for the film to look very saturated in color and bright and everything else. It would have been inappropriate for this film to look like the first Avengers movie. And I think if you watch the film, you'll probably agree with that assessment. Now, as for one of the elements that I'm still not sold on, having watched it again, which is Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is the primary villain, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and I like her as an actress. I'm not sure, given how charismatic that character is, I'm not sure the tone of that character is appropriate at times. At times, for the rest of the tone of the movie, right? Just her demeanor. She's a bit too flamboyant, and she can be a little bit cartoonish at times. And this film, I do feel it should have lent a little bit more towards the more serious Watchmen kind of vibe, but I'm not sure you can make... I'm not sure Hollywood has the confidence to make Watchmen type movies now at this point, given how everything seems to be saturated with a degree of humor and jokes and irony, and serious moments get emotionally undercut by diffusing the energy and the tension with, cheap gags. There's not actually that many cheap gags in this movie, but there are a few times, like, for example, when Red Guardian he's driving the car through the desert, and he just kind of goes on and on. There's some of the humor, some of the jokes he's making, they just kind of go on, and you're kind of going, okay, just fast forward this bit and just get to the next bit of important exposition, because this joke isn't working. And there's a few moments like that in the film. Some of the humor does work, and some of it I think is appropriate. And I do think that David Harbour does a great job with the character. I really like Red Guardian, and most of the time it works really well. And he's able to do this. What's great about the writing for that character and with David Harbour's performance is that he's able to do the humor, and yet he's able to also do the really important, emotional, heartfelt stuff with his quote unquote daughter Yelena. And the other thing that will be, I know a lot of my subscribers are going to disagree, and they're going to be surprised that I'm going to say this, because I know what I do read the comments, and I do know your thoughts on this, and I do know your thoughts and feelings on this. I really like Florence Pugh. All right, and I really like her in this movie, and I think that she does a fantastic job. I think she's written really well. I think she really takes the film on her shoulders. She is, she's able to do the tough stuff as well, and yet she's very human. She's very endearing. She's able to do the vulnerable stuff as well. You can see that this character goes on a journey. She takes the character on that journey. She really takes the role, by the reins, very much so, and by the end of it, like you can't help but root for her, and you can't help but like her character. Or at least that's the way it was for me. That's the way it was for me. And you can see the enormous progression she's gone on since being this funny, wacky sidekick in Black Widow, which again wasn't a good movie. I don't think it was a good movie. It was weaker. It was very meh. But she was one of the highlights of that film, because she did the humor so well. And in this film, I think she moves into a proper leading role. She's graduated in her performance to that level, and so she does. And everyone else gets good stuff to do. Everyone else is likable. I think Hannah John Kamen as Ava Starr, Ghost, she probably gets the least amount to do, actually, which is unfortunate. It would have been nice to see a little bit more from her. I really liked Wyatt Russell as U.S. agent. And the dynamic, the chemistry between Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman, who plays Bob, Robert Reynolds, the Sentry character. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, he's superb in the role. You're not really sure what to make of him. From the very beginning. I mean, I think it's predictable enough that that there's something about him that is going to unfold that's going to be very significant to the plot, and he's probably going to be a bad guy. Like you kind of do see that on the horizon, and his shift from being this unstable character with serious mental problems to being what he becomes, to becoming this god, it's so well handled. It is genuinely another strong attribute to the film. I will say as well, I do like ragtag ensemble movies like Guardians, like Suicide Squad. I think this is better than Suicide Squad for me, because the characters are more human, more grounded, less kind of wacky, eccentric. I am a sucker for those kind of stories about characters who have a hard time doing the right thing. Life has not been good to them. They've taken the road not taken. They've taken the road they shouldn't have taken, and they've ended up in a place they don't really want to be. They would like ideally to be heroes, but they don't believe that they ever could be. And that's the story of Thunderbolts. It is, as the tagline says, not super, not heroes, not giving up. And that's the reason why I believe the ending of the movie is so satisfying, because although it is abrupt it's impactful in a meaningful way, which is that our heroes, having gone through what they've gone through, earn their place. They are promoted to being the new Avengers officially. And it's just a great moment to end the movie on, because it puts a smile on your face, and it feels like as much of a shock to the characters as it is to the audience. And I think it was handled really well. And what I'll also say as well, and another major highlight of the movie is the fight scene between Thunderbolts and Sentry, which is just fantastic. It's so well done. He's so incredibly powerful. They throw everything at him. They haven't got a hope of beating him. It would have actually been interesting to see which other Avengers might have been able to give him a run for his money. How would Hulk have done against him? How would Thor or even Captain Marvel, for example, done against him? I think they probably would have come off second best. Sentry is supremely powerful, and also in this movie, I think, quite comic book accurate. Now, as a result of him being incredibly strong, there was no direct physical force way of beating him. There was no, they couldn't match him in strength, so they had to go into this void. So he's able to send people into this void where they sort of confront their traumas. And Yelena is dealing with her own stuff from her childhood, as is Bob. And in the end, they have to go on an emotional plea with him to come out of that and to help get them out of the void. And that it's kind of like the anti-nexus. It's kind of like the dark nexus, right? And I really didn't like it because it just felt, that's the one kind of clunky thing about the movie that was just a bit whatever, you know. It's like they kind of written themselves into a corner with how powerful Sentry was, that there was no other way to beat him but to sort of try and talk him down off the ledge, which people have pointed out is kind of similar to what Captain America, Sam Wilson, had to do with Red Hulk, Thunderbolt Ross, at the end of Brave New World. Although this is handled far better because thematically it's about trauma, it's about something else entirely, and it's much more central to the character's primary story and indeed the whole theme of the film. So in that respect, I think it plays pretty well. Look, I wasn't expecting this film to be, absolute 5 stars. I wasn't expecting it to be some amazing superhero action movie epic. I expected to be entertained and to enjoy the movie, which it did its job. It held my attention. I enjoyed the film. I watched it again. I enjoyed it again. I got more out of it the second time. I think it has its own problems, which lots of movies do. But I also will say is that there have been people, I'm not going to name names, I'm not interested in starting fights or anything, right? With the greatest respect in the world, I do think that there are people in this arena, in this sphere or genre, whatever you want to call it, of YouTube, who do the kind of stuff that I do, who have been a little bit hard on this movie, possibly because it's kind of expected of them to have a particular point of view about these kinds of movies. And I think maybe even some of you guys may have expected me to be hard on this movie or to trash this movie because that's sort of what we're expected to do or something, and it's like it's kind of popular or something to rag on Marvel. There's lots of aspects of MCU of the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the last few years that have been very genuinely very unfortunate and also extremely disappointing. And when a good movie comes along, people just expect it. They expect it to be rubbish. There's just preconceptions. As we talked about before, it's like the end of woke, but it's the beginning of slop, right? This film is neither woke nor slop, in my opinion. And I stand by that. I think it's an entertaining film. I think if you're being honest with yourself when you watch this film, tell me afterwards. Think of there's movies like in phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 that are not as good as this, in my opinion. Like, for example, I think this film is stronger than... I think it's actually stronger than The Incredible Hulk. I think it's stronger than Thor: The Dark World. I think it's actually stronger than Iron Man 2. A lot of people go, what? But Iron Man 2 is not, it's not that great. Like, it's all right. Like, it's nowhere near as good as Iron Man 1, is it? Right? I think it's as good as any of the Spider-Man movies in the MCU. Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. I think it's as good as Doctor Strange 1. I think it's on the stronger end of the MCU spectrum. Does it get me psyched for the rest of the MCU? No, it doesn't. Like, as I look at this, I take this film entirely as a standalone thing, even though the end credits scene sets up Fantastic Four, a film I have no interest in. And this has not reignited my interest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. After watching Thunderbolts, I am not more excited now to watch Fantastic Four or to watch Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars, because I know in particular what those two films are all about. They're not really about a story I have any particular interest in that has been building anywhere for the last while. Those films are about bringing back legacy cast members and actors we haven't seen for a while, who are either been killed off or gone away for a while, and to bring them back for member berries and to hopefully coax MCU fans to get audiences back in theaters out of nostalgia bait, right? And member berries. That's it. I don't think there's going to be anything worse. It's not going to be Infinity War Endgame quality. But this film had a story and an ensemble of characters I liked. I found relatable. I found them to be compelling. I liked the conflict. The film was an easy watch, and I found it enjoyable. And in that respect, as a standalone film, as a standalone story, I think it works. And I think it's worth watching. And the only thing that I've changed upon reevaluation is that I do think that the film is worth your time to watch it in the cinema. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on Thunderbolts. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.